Those of you not familiar with ESIG, we're a membership-based nonprofit organization. We provide our members with objective information and resources for renewable energy and energy systems integration decisions, peer-to-peer networking opportunities, information and knowledge sharing, and professional education experiences. We held our spring technical workshop in Tucson in March, and our next activity will be the forecasting workshop in St. Paul next week from Tuesday through Thursday, June 19 to 21. This is a workshop on the applications of wind and solar power forecasting, power system planning and operations, and energy system integration. There's still time to register, and you're all invited to attend. ESIG is really quite a unique organization. I don't think there's anything else quite like it anywhere, and if you're new to use ESIG, I strongly encourage you to follow up with us if you like what you hear, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with what you find. You can find us at www.esig.energy. Okay, now just a few logistical matters before we get started. First of all, the phones will be muted for the duration of the webinar to avoid unnecessary distractions. So please use the question and answer box on the lower right side of your screen to submit questions, and we'll save 10 or 15 minutes at the end for a Q&A. We plan to wrap it up at the top of the hour, and an email with a link will be provided once the presentation and the audio file have been posted. You'll get an email from Ryan about that. So today our webinar will feature Ulrich Backen, a co-founder and CEO of Energy and Medio Systems, a German company specialized in renewable power forecasting and energy management. Ulrich holds a PhD in the field of wind power forecasting from the University of Oldenburg in Germany. In 2004, together with Matthias Lang, Ulrich co-founded Energy and Medio Systems, which soon emerged as one of the world's leading suppliers of wind and solar power forecasts. Under Ulrich's leadership, the company expanded its portfolio from forecasting to a range of services for renewable power integration into the electricity grid and energy markets, including its virtual power plant or VPP services. This webinar is going to describe how the portfolio formed by these aggregated units becomes a single dispatchable resource that offers flexibility and reliability services from the aggregated units into the electricity markets. With the interest in aggregation of DERs most everywhere, VPPs are gaining popularity worldwide. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I'll turn it over to Ulrich. Ulrich, please.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie, for the invitation and the possibility to talk about virtual power plants here. So I think most of the folks out in the hearing here know our company more from forecasting perspective. But as Charlie mentioned before, we have the second big point we're dealing with is virtual power plants. We're just focusing on those two things and apply this more worldwide. Virtual power plants are getting more and more popular everywhere. In Germany, I think it's a 5-6 years history already where they are operational and running for large parts of portfolios. So I think in Germany it's standard for wind, solar, biogas, and other assets to be part of virtual power plants of single portfolios balanced by traders or utilities. Or in the future, we will see some more on grid operators. I just came from Berlin where we're on grid operators sitting together, and it will be more focused for grid operators and TSOs also to run a virtual power plant. I'll come to that later. So the topic was about forecasting and virtual power plants. The description was more about virtual power plants. So I will point out at the beginning a little bit more about VPPs, and then have one big block about forecasting in VPPs. I will not go into details on all the forecasting issues because we have the workshop next week to go in more detail in how to do forecasting and all the methodologies for mesoscale modeling and so on. So first question here, what is a VPP? I started with some buzzwords which are out there, and they're often combined with VPPs. So big data. I would say no. VPP has nothing to do with big data. Even if there's data in there, and there's lots of data coming, like SCADA data and unavailabilities, lots of different forecasts, but it's not big data because it's structured and standardized. And that's one of the key stuff of virtual power plants, that you have to have structured and standardized data to really be able to deal with different markets. The second buzzword I want to put here is artificial AI. It's the same here. It's just a buzzword, but it has nothing to do, or only a minor stuff, with VPPs. So in VPPs, mainly it has to be a robust methodology, and it's mostly deterministic methodologies. So it's nothing with AI mostly has to do with big data. We don't have big data, so from our perspective, we don't need AI in this context. I see that there will be lots of discussion. Please do that at the end. Unfortunately, we are not able to do the discussion now, but post lots of questions. I'm open to the discussion here. Third point, big validation, and there's a big yes. So what we faced in our operational business of VPPs is that this is the big topic of VPPs. Even if it sounds a little boring. So I studied physics, and when I started with the VPP business, I thought about, okay, we need really large methodologies, complex methodologies to do different market stuff. But when I do that in practice, no, that's not the case. So the main stuff is, unfortunately, because it's a little bit boring, it's validation. So it's all about data, validation, and then put it together to a robust methodology. Coming back to the 2 point forecasting and VPP. So at forecasting, we can talk a lot about different and complex methodologies, mesoscale modeling, RAM forecast, and ensemble forecasting and all that stuff. The VPP is a software tool which assists you in doing your job. So it's assistant, robust software solution. I would like to go today into some more details, and in deep details on what does it mean. And this is, as mentioned, it is not complex. It's thousands or even more small different things which you have to think about. So it's a lot of small pieces which have to be robust, and not one big shot like principal component analysis or whatsoever you can think about. So starting with why do you need a VPP? So think about there's a utility or trader or even a grid operator, and you have to manage 200 wind farms, 100 solar farms, 20 CHPs, 20 hydro units, 5 gas units, 50 demand response assets. That's something what is standard right now in Germany. So I come to the German case quite often today because this is a case where it's developed from where we are sitting. We do that for several years right now, and what we see, which now goes into the world, and everywhere it looks at different things, at the same issue here. And the assets you have could be your own assets, it could be PPA assets, or a mixture. Or some VPPs are really specific for one case only. For UK, for example, what we see there is it's only batteries for flexibility market, because flexibility market there is lots of money in there. So let's do batteries, and there's lots of companies right now like LimeJump or Ecotricity. They need a VPP just for batteries, nothing more. Now they expand to other assets, but it's beginning only with one asset, and then they say, well, maybe we can use other stuff as well. And then that's the system. What should it do? So from my point of view, it's 5 points. The first thing is collect all data which is necessary from all assets. I come to that later on, because there's a big mixture, as you can see above. The assets are all different. They all have different data types and it's interconnected. Then you have monitor all the data. This is a really big point. When I got to the beginning on it's a big evaluation, and there's a lot of corrupt data, missing data, which you have to deal with, and you have a lot of troubleshooting on connection problems and all that stuff. Then, if you have all the data, if you have the monitored, you have calculate plant schedules. So you need schedules for each plant, for portfolios, for markets. This should the VPP does need some constraints which you have on each asset, which you have to use for that calculating of schedules. If this is done, optimize the portfolio of the different markets. So this is, from my perspective, an important point here as well. So VPP offers normally the opportunity to go to different markets. So as for example, Lime Jump in the UK that just go to flexibility market with batteries. It's only a very small part, but the VPP should be that well structured that you can deal with a portfolio of different markets. And I come to that later on. And of course, if you have traded on the market, and then of course after that, the portfolio should behave like you traded. So there should be an automatic or manual scheduling using remote control and really make the assets behave as you like them to behave. And this is something which is in detail complex again. Coming maybe to the most boring part in the beginning. This is data collections. And I have something which was, just to give an example, only on wind power. It's totally the same story for every other asset type out there. If it's wind, solar, or batteries, everything similar like this example here. So the connection to the SCADA system, it's not standardized, unfortunately. So every manufacturer is using their different protocols and different definition of data points. So as Enercon use OPC, SCADA International, Modbus, Gamesa, different stuff, Senvion, they all use different protocols. So you really want to deal with all that stuff, or you need a solution which just says, okay, hey, there's a Gamesa wind farm, give me this and these data points, I need power, I need icing information, I need portable power and some other data points, and it's there. So protocol works, data point is standardized. And I think this is one of the really the core features of a VPP, to make SCADA connections in a proper way, and to bring all the interfaces, and to standardize all the data. What does it mean, standardize the data? Just one example. Icing is a big problem of wind turbines. We have that in Germany, beginning of January. We had that at SPP just, I don't know, 6 weeks ago still, or 8 weeks ago. A long time this winter, or this spring. For thousands of power pool mice, so icing of wind turbines was a really critical problem. And how to deal with that? So the thing is, you can get icing information, you can do forecasts out of it. We do that as well as others. You should do that, but you can get the icing information out of the SCADA system as well. But it's not always the same data point. For example, at an Enercon machine, which is not that important for US, I know, but for other parts of the world it is, it's an error code. So it's not a single data point, it's an error code. It's difficult to get that out of this error code, the icing information. It's not trivial. If you miss the error code of icing, it's gone. And so it's different from other machines where icing is a data point, where you just skip, I just want to know now if the machine is iced or not. At Enercon, you're not able to do that. You're not able to ask the machine, you're iced, yes or no? You won't get an answer. For some, you get an answer. So what the VPP should do is standardize that at the end you have a screen, you have all the points here, at the end all the data points, and you don't care how this comes out of one of these turbines, or it does not matter for you. So this is something which is on a critical point, and so as from our operation perspective, hard work, long-term work, and you always have to calibrate, and even for single, if you look for a single manufacturer, the data point list differs from turbine type to turbine type. So this is a long story to do that in a proper way. If you have the SCADA data, this is one data collection, but the other data collection is for example, unavailabilities of assets. So you have to collect that from different parties. So this is another point. You have all the different assets, but you have different stakeholders where you get data from. The connection to a wind farm or solar park should be automatically, but to connect to unavailabilities should be an API as well, but maybe sometimes inverter breaks and you need that information right now, and so the O&M teams can type it in, and you need some collection interface to get all this data. So unavailabilities is similar important as, now not similar, but it's also important. The SCADA data is far more important. That's for sure the case. But it's a more data source which you get into here. If you have all the data, there's some other data comes in, we come to that later, like forecasting and data streams, but this is like the data which you need together with standing data as the core input of a VPP. If you have all the data, the thing is there's lots of corrupt data. It's enormous how often data is corrupt. So what you need is you need to analyze which data is corrupt, so where you do troubleshooting. And you need the VPP should provide a nice overview where it's easy to see, okay, there's one wind farm, the fourth in the row. For example, here it's all red, data is not coming in time, you need it. And then you have to do troubleshooting. You have to phone somebody, or you have to see, you have to look what the problem is. For other assets where there's only gaps of 15 minutes, you don't care. But you need something like really to see on a fast view for the back office of the utility what to deal with. This is only if data comes or not. But often the problem is that data is corrupt. That is even more often what we see. Of course, for large wind farms, that's not the big issue, but if you look for smaller assets, that's far more the case. So there's deviation between live meter, which is from the SCADA system, and meter data. So the counting data, meter or counting data is the same here. There's often deviation in there. And you have to find out that. So if you trade on live data, but this is not the same as counting data, then of course there's an error in what you did. Then if it's over installed capacity, if it's negative values, if it's missing from some turbines, not all the whole farm, if there's time shift in live meter and meter data. So there's lots of errors, and what the VPP should give you is something like a very fast overview on what the errors comes from. Should give you a list where you can see, okay, this data makes this problem, and then you look at it and can do troubleshooting. For example, one example here is that there's a time shift, for example. We see that quite often, that the time at the SCADA computer is not the same as what we expect. So it could be UTC, it could be Eastern, it could be Eastern summer, Eastern winter. So that is what we see quite often, that there's a difference, what you can see here, between the meter data, here it's 15-minute data, and the live data, which of course we should be received on second or 10-second values. And there should be automatic algorithms, like what I've shown, the blacklisting, to automatically detect the data, throw it out, give an alarm, says, here, look for this data stream, not working properly, and then you really can do troubleshooting on that. So this is a most important thing, and what we have seen from our customers, is something, if you have larger VPPs, not only with 1, 2, or 3 assets, but with 100, 500 assets, it's one of the most work you put into a VPP or into a portfolio which you would like to run as one asset. So that's what Charlie mentioned in the beginning, that the aim of a VPP is that a portfolio of smaller assets behave like one asset in the market. And so this is the most work which has to be done, even if it sounds really boring. And yeah, it's hard work to do that. The same thing is like for the different data streams, like the meter data, which is called here MS-Cont data. It's a format in Germany. SCADA data, like standing data, forecast. If the control works, so it's a cockpit which shows you which data is late coming in and dealing with all this data stuff. So it's really, I repeat that here, but we laughed about missing data, and then if you have detected it's missing data, you have to provide estimates. So the system has to calculate estimates for the data which is missing, so that you're not running blind with a portfolio maybe of 3,000 megawatt, but 300 megawatt data is missing, and you run only on 2,700 megawatt. That should not be the case. So the thing is here, big overview, this asset gives this problem. You see that you can do troubleshooting, first thing, or a second thing. First thing, the system should provide estimates on missing data, so that you at the end have some robust line, which is a white curve here, for single asset, which you can deal with. So until now, I just talked about receiving data, looking for data, data monitoring, blacklisting, providing estimates, and now I think we're at the edge where we can start really working with the data. First thing we have to look on that is if we have good data, which is a robust data stream, here showed for one asset, for example, is that you need forecasting for that. Forecasting is needed for different time frames. I think we discussed that a lot, as I mentioned in the forecasting workshops. I think a lot of you hopefully will see next week as a ISIC workshop on forecasting. And I just showed here that there's different time frames what you need. There's an orange curve. This is a day ahead curve, and maybe you can see that a little bit difficult to see the red one here. This is a very short-term forecast for maybe 15 minutes ahead, so we're a very short-term frame. So this comes in, and this is the basic for scheduling the assets. This is on a single site, but if you then aggregate, as mentioned, you need to have all data for production, unavailabilities, and forecasts, all time frames, and this is a look how this looks like a portfolio. And all that what we have seen until now is not important for the trader himself sitting in front. He does not care about all what I talked about now. So this should be done by back office, the trader who really works on a daily basis on the different markets, does not care on all the single assets. He just want to look at the portfolio, and the portfolio for maybe one balancing area, maybe for one type, for one customer, whatsoever. This is, or for one market. And this is what we see here, like day ahead forecast with a large error here, so that is visible. Then live data and very short-term forecast. So all the aggregation should be robust, and yeah, it took lots of work to make to define how to deal with all errors which could occur in this kind of process. And now you see what I want to say with my talk a little bit, maybe as a medium statement, that if VPP is not one big strategy, it's 1,000 different small aspects you have to deal with, and every small aspect has to be robust. To provide uncertainty was a big topic as well on discussions, and how to provide that in SCADA systems. I think a VPP is something like a SCADA systems. What we have seen is that providing uncertainty in automatic decision processes is quite a big thing. So it's not simple to do that. And the standard application for uncertainties is a visual impact of the user. So this is what we show here in spreads. This is the orange line is a deterministic forecast, the best guess forecast, the combination out of different forecasts, and the uncertainty is a spread which shows you hopefully unsymmetric. Could it be underperform or overperform your portfolio within a time frame what we see here of a few hours or day ahead. And this is the standard way on dealing with uncertainties in the process of VPPs, or also other topics, but also in the VPP. This is a live view where you can see that at this point where the red line is live, and there the forecast goes on. I want to do one small step into the forecasting issue of very short-term forecasting. So you have done all the day ahead stuff, you've done all the intraday stuff for a few hours ahead, but then you look really in the very short term of forecasting. So what we see here is the error as a mean absolute error in percentage normalized of installed capacity over the prediction horizon up to 1 hour. What we see here that it's steep increasing in the beginning at the first minute. The basic for this calculation is that the measurement at point 0 right now is fully available, so the forecast error is 0. But this is not the case. So all that what we discussed before, we have to do data collection, data validation, blacklisting, providing estimates. All this has to be done and then forecasting, and this needs some time. And if we expect this takes 12 minutes, so 0.2 on the x-axis here, then the error is 2.5% just to this delay. So this delay is one of the really crucial things for the very short-term forecasting which you need for online processes, DIR and MISO or whatever. So what we did is, as an example, when we introduced dispatchable intermittent, or when MISO introduced dispatchable intermittent resource in July 2011, already 7 years ago, yes, and then that it has to be really fast from measurement, forecasting, and providing the forecast for the DIR. And we reduce timing that receiving data takes 10 to 15 seconds. Do the forecasting, very short-term forecasting, needs maybe 20 seconds, and provide it back to MISO is maybe 10, 15 seconds again to put it in their systems that they can apply. So the whole chain is just 40 seconds. So the thing is here, it's important not to lose accuracy due to slow data acquisition and data streaming. And this is what a VPP has to bring here, that it's really for the very short term frame, the data streaming has to be very, very fast, not to lose accuracy here. And this is what we see now in Germany. We're really close to market, so the physical trading on the market can be nearly close, the trading can be close to real time. It's really important that we talk about seconds with our customers on what the delay of measurements should be. Standard today is not to use only one forecast provider, it's to use several forecast providers. They all have their strengths and disadvantages. And what we see here is a green forecaster and a red forecaster, and VPP should provide something like a combination. So this is the yellow curve, which it's a day ahead forecast here, what we see. And the yellow curve in the mean is better than both others. And this weighting, what we see here for this incident, for this weather situation, is 30 to 70%. But this should be calculated either within the VPP or a module outside the VPP fits quite fast or connected quite fast to the VPP in providing this combination of forecast. So if this is in the VPP, you need something like evaluation of forecast so that it can be fast done. And what you see down here on the right corner is it's a schedule of forecast for the last, I don't know, few weeks. And you can see, for example, the yellow forecast on the higher, so the scatter, what you see is measured power compared to forecasted power for a specific portfolio. You can see that yellow performs a little bit better than purple, and so you can change. It should be the possibility to change weighting either manually or automatically. Could be both. And of course, then if you talk about this, there could be some more AI models or sophisticated models behind. If you talk about this specific part, how to combine forecast, this could be even more sophisticated, but what we see is that even simple models here is enough to provide really robust, good methodology. Okay, this was just for wind, what we see here, but VPP should be able to deal with different other assets. So one other example here, how to define schedules for cold warehouse, cold storing facility. So here it's not a physical forecasting of weather and then applying some unavailability. It's totally different. It's fuel prices, minimum running time, min-max power and power steps, because the cooling facilities generators are not able to go continuous. Then it's outside temperature, which gives you some amount of cool you need, minimum energy you need for the whole day. So you need, for example, 10 megawatt hours cooling for the day and charging level. And then you need to have a big box of possibility to define constraints for each asset. And these constraints could be similar for different asset types, but could be also very specific for the types of assets. So here you have a big variety comparable to what I talked about in the beginning. In the beginning I talked about the interfacing style system, but this is a very big variety here. But here again, you have a big variety of different constraints you need to provide optimized schedules for different asset types. If you have all the schedules, this is the thing what the trader looks at. Then he knows something about what you see here is in gray, what he traded on. This is an online view, for example, where he traded all the gray line. This is the operation schedule, what he has done. The white curve is the actual production, and the orange curve is the forecast. So here, a utility trader has as one view, and this should be provided by a VPP, and a very compressed overview on information you need. And this, for sure, on portfolio level and not for single assets. This is not important. If you trade it here and you have a problem, you don't want to look into details. It's not important for you. So this is really what is needed. And if you go one step further, of course, if you have different balancing areas and you have different asset types and you have different markets, this is not enough, because you're not able to look at one side. Well, you need to see here below the red line. The red line is now for each balancing area or market. You need to know what the open position is to really be able to react really fast on the different markets. On that top, there's some stuff coming on, which is very popular now in Germany and Europe is automatic trading, which is standard in the stock market, but in the energy market, I think it's not standard now. But what we see, it comes more and more. And so the virtual power plant is very often connected to an algo trading tool, which then trading the open positions automatically on different markets. What does it mean? Yeah. And after that, you traded all that. Then the last step is really to guarantee that your portfolio behaves like you want it to behave. So you have to schedule them in real time and have to automatically reschedule them if they don't behave like they should behave. So this is the deal that this, if you look at one turbine, what we see here, for example, the dark red, the dark green and the low is the provided schedule to curtail because of maybe negative prices or other incidences. And this is only for one asset. But this, of course, has to be totally automatic for a portfolio of assets. So here again, you want to act as for one portfolio. And so I will describe this a little bit more in detail. What you see here as purple and orange is the forecast. What we see in white is the production. So in the beginning, you can see that the production fits very good the very short-term forecast. It fits both good together. You know, as the balancing authority for your portfolio, there's no balancing cost allocated with it because what you've done, what you traded, and what the reproduction is fits very good together. Just as a point here, the green red line is a possible production. So all between the green and the white is the production is curtailment from TSO grid operator due to grid constraints. At this point, where the white curve does not follow the orange curve anymore, there's some down curtailment due to market prices. At the top, you see some plot of the Apex spot, which is the auction in France, Germany, and Switzerland, and Austria. And you can see here that at this incident, at this day where this happens, we had negative prices down to, for the whole day, down to minus 80 euro per megawatt. So you had to pay 80 euro for each megawatt you produce. Of course, this is stupid to do that. We have some tax credit here as well. So below 70 euro, it does not make sense in Germany to produce wind power. And so this is why this was curtailed. And what you see, maybe not too good, but the gray line, which is really close to the white line here, this is a schedule. This is a schedule provided by the VPP to the whole portfolio, where we talk about now it's roughly 4,000 megawatts, 4 gigawatt of portfolio, which is wind, solar, and some other assets. And you really can see that the real production follows the schedule quite good. And then here at the end, it comes up to nearly the forecast again. There's a small curtailment at the end. There's some small curtailment again. But this is something which has to go totally automatically, because what is behind here is 500 assets. So it's not one, it's 500 assets. And critical. So this is done due to negative prices, DIR at MISO, ancillary services, demand response. So this is something where you need this scheduling and remote control. And there's one slide missing. The most important here is that this has to be totally automatically. And what we see if you deal with 500 assets is standard stuff that they are not doing what you want. So there's out of 500 assets, you always have some they're not reacting at all. Communication breaks down. And this, and so you have to do an automatic rescheduling so that really your production fits to your schedule. And this is what a VPP should manage. They should manage all schedules for all assets and do an automatic rescheduling. And the thing is here, the big problem is on what is your optimization function of the rescheduling. Is it you just go to the schedule, or you overperform, you underperform? So there's lots of small things which you have to take into account to do that. And this is what a VPP should provide, that really at the end, the schedule, then the power production fits to the schedule. And of course, it should look, in this case, for the automatic reduction on the merit order. So it should take the cheapest first and the most costly at the end. So you have a merit order, and the merit order has it's a big Excel sheet on different issues, on how long should it stay online, on which steps it can do, and if it's performing right now, yes or not, and the price at the end. So this is a merit order on and where it should react. Location is a thing as well, and reaction possibilities. So this is what a VPP has to consider if it does an automatic scheduling of a whole portfolio. So, what the opportunities with VPP? I think we discussed how it helps in collecting necessary data, monitoring the data, calculating plant schedules, optimizing the portfolio for different markets, and automatic scheduling using remote control. When I came to my first slide, so it's really, there's a lot of data involved, but the VPP is, from a perspective where I look now, it's a robust software solution which helps you to manage a portfolio with all the thousands of small problems you have, of interfacing, of missing data, of providing estimates, on automatic rescheduling, and all of that stuff. So nothing of these thousands of things is complicated. It's not really complicated what a VPP does, but it's thousands of things. And yeah, I would be interested to discuss with you what you think about it. If this is a good view on VPP, or if you think, oh, this is too stupid for me, it sounds too stupid or too simple. And you see what opportunities VPP has in case of this. So, and this is where I will end my talk, and thanks for your attention. I'm very happy to have some more questions here.
Okay, thank you, Ulrich. We'll give people a few minutes to think about what you said and put some questions in, but in the meantime, I'll start the discussion with a few thoughts or questions of my own. I think that you've probably encountered this problem a little bit before we have, because we haven't really gotten deep into the aggregation of distributed resources, but we're moving in that direction. So I think what you've done is very interesting in that regard. One thing that we didn't talk about in any detail in here, Ulrich, or in much detail outside of the ice storage, was the electrical storage resource. And I'm curious, do you have any thoughts on how the addition of batteries, for example, will affect the forecasting and the operation of VPPs?
That is, it's only one asset more. So for the grid, if we discuss in the perspective of a grid operator, this of course changes a lot. For the VPP, it's just one asset with some constraints, and that's it. So this is, if you have a cold warehouse, it's for VPP nothing different than a battery. So
let's take the viewpoint of the TSO then for a moment then. Not just for the storage resource, but for all the resources. Does the TSO look at the operation of a VPP any differently from how he looks at the operation of any other plant that fits into the market? And how does that view change on the TSO's part as storage gets aggregated?
Even for the TSO, there is no difference, because a VPP should act as one entity. So if you look for VPP side at the portfolio level, it's one schedule and it behaves like that schedule. And if there's wind combined with batteries and solar and hydro, it behaves as one asset, and it should provide what is promised. And this is where you need the automatic scheduling control for. So at the TSO level, it's fine if they have lots of VPPs in their system in the market, so they know exactly what happens and what the battery does.
So does the battery or the asset owner play a role in the scheduling of the battery, or does the operator of the VPP manage that process?
Normally the VPP. So the VPP owner has a PPA with the battery, and then it is completely responsible for scheduling the battery. So the battery owner is just a financial investor who builds it. But if it has a PPA with the VPP owner, the VPP operator decides what to do. It has to be that way. Otherwise, it does not work. Or for some assets, it's different. That's normally, but not for batteries. This is for demand response assets, where the VPP receives a schedule from the industry, from the demand response industry, what they can do and what flexibility they have. So there's some, some constraints from the industry, what can be done or not. But then the schedule is provided, and this has to be anticipated by the VPP.
And how much flexibility is there in the schedule should the owner of the asset decide that he wants to change his schedule or doesn't want to participate for some period of time, or maybe needs his battery for some outage that's occurring? How much flexibility is there in the scheduling process, and how easy is it to take that into account?
This depends on the contract of the VPP operator and the asset owner. So for lots of assets, the flexibility goes over to the VPP operator totally, and he just pays a specific amount, which is fixed, to use his flexibility, and sometimes it's something in between. And then, of course, you need some possibility to reschedule your flexibility or your potential, or you tell the VPP operator, okay, today or tomorrow I don't have any flexibility for me. Please don't use my battery. I use it myself. But this is something which is in between the contract of the VPP operator and the asset owner.
So if you've taken day-ahead position or some other situation where there's risk involved, how is the risk shared between the asset owner and the VPP operator?
Could be all. This is nothing where we can give lots of answers, because our job normally is just to provide technical solutions here. So we are not in the contract issue. This is something between the VPP operator and the asset owner. What I know is it could be something like a fixed tariff for megawatt hour, fixed tariff for capacity, could be something like shared profit on the market, or it could be at the end only something like that the asset owner pays a tariff, fixed tariff, to use the VPP as a market access.
So it gets complicated. Another complication.
But that's a contract issue. That's really a contract issue, which is always a little bit complicated.
Yeah. Another complexity that I'm curious about, Ulrich, and listening to the description there, is the forecasting complexity, because you've got the wind plant that you're forecasting for, you've got the solar plant, you've got the load or the demand response, maybe storage, maybe CHP. It seems like the forecast process for each of those must be a little bit different, and you must need some time to combine the forecasts depending on how diverse the range of assets is that you're operating. How does that forecasting complexity affect the accuracy of the overall process and the operation of the VPP and the time lags?
Yeah, I see that I missed to point out that forecasting of all these assets is mainly not coming with the VPP. So this is time series which comes from experts outside. So the forecasting of solar and wind, for example, is normally not provided by the VPP. Sometimes yes, but there's experts out there for forecasting, like DNV, they are here as well. I just see them in the attendee list, or others who are experts, and the VPP just offers an interface to integrate all this forecast. So if I go back here, so this different forecast, which you see here, the green and the red line, is not provided by the VPP itself. It comes from outside, and there's just an interface to take it in. So, and this is with other assets as well. They're experts on water, they're experts on solar, and some assets are very easy to schedule and then, or to forecast, and this is made by the VPP itself. For example, biogas. Biogas is really straightforward. There's not much flexibility in there. It's not weather-driven. This is easy, and this could be made by the VPP himself. But most of the assets forecast comes from outside.
So it seems that there must be some need for the humans in the loop, even though, I mean, you're dealing with very large amounts of data, and it's obviously got to be automated, and you certainly emphasize the automation of the process, but it seems like there's still got to be some humans around to watch things when something goes wrong, to fix things, to monitor the data coming in, monitor the outputs. What's your experience with the need for humans in the loop, and how much the machines can do without the people?
You need people. There's no way out that for all this blacklisting stuff, you can do some automation, but you need people to really look if everything works properly, and you need people who work on the different markets. As I mentioned, there's algo trading coming more and more in Germany. So we have an algo trading machine here, an automatic trading machine inside the VPP as well. But what we see is there's lots. This is some point where we talk about AI, and I see more that it's not possible to do everything automatically. There is some manual interaction needed. That's why an interface is needed, where you can see everything clearly and can react fast on what happens.
So we can't get rid of the humans entirely.
No way. Not yet. Not yet. I think we maybe in 10 years, or 5 to 10 years, but not yet.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about PV that's been on my mind, Ulrich. And that's really residential PV, rooftop PV. You know, we've adopted the, I would say, policy, but perhaps it's technology-based. Perhaps it's just, perhaps it's not technology-based. But we tend to think of rooftop PV as being must-take, that there's really no way of managing it, controlling it, regulating it. It's too expensive. There's too many rooftops. What is your view of participation of residential rooftop PV in a VPP and the need to manage its output as time goes on in the electricity markets, as we get more and more rooftop PV in the markets?
We thought about that a lot, because we do lots of all production above 100 kV. This is done as a minimum what we deal with right now. And so we discussed what happens with all the small stuff. Germany, we have 1.5 million residential PV plants. But what we see, all the connection, all that stuff, is far too much work. And I'm quite sure this will be done by decentralized management. So there will be a tariff which changes that. And then you have a battery PV system, and there will be a signal by the smart meter. It gives you a signal now power is cheap. And then due to the signal, if power outside is cheap or expensive, it will charge the battery or provide energy. But this will be not, we don't see this as a centralized system.
And you're considering the VPP as a centralized system in that regard?
Yeah. That's what it is. It's a centralized scheduling system for decentralized small assets, compared to the old world, but not to the very far away world with very residential PV.
So you think that even in the long term, that just some kind of a governor droop control on the PV plants will be the way of regulating rooftop PV down in the event that you have excessive generation that you can't control?
Maybe there's a stop signal for big problems, so that the heat or ISO, which have the problem, they group it and then they send a signal out, please stop everything, but not really like what is done in the VPP is really like minute by minute scheduling of each asset. I don't see that for rooftop PV.
Right. But even at the present time, there's really no control mechanism between any central control and the distributed rooftop PV devices.
Yep.
Right. So that may be necessary sometime in the future.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But what we see in most of the markets is that, not all markets, but that it's a lot of flexibility available. And if we go more for VPPs, then flexibility will increase in the system. And the question is, when do we need more flexibility in the system, that we need the small assets in some of these regulations?
And I see that we have a related question that's come in there. Besides the markets that reward flexibility, where do VPPs make sense?
Once again?
I see a related question that's just come in is, in addition to the markets which reward flexibility, whereabouts do VPPs make sense?
It's similar. If you look for South Africa is totally vertically integrated. But even there, it could totally make sense for Eskom to have a VPP to regulate all the small assets, because their dispatch system for the grid is not made to really connect to 1,000 assets and do an automatic regulation of 1,000 assets. It's for the large stuff. And so even for this vertical integrated systems, it totally makes sense to have a VPP for example, Eskom.
Yeah, so it could be like an intermediate aggregator where you've got a lot of distributed resources.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we're about at the top of the hour, so we're going to need to wrap it up. And as I mentioned earlier, an email will go out once the presentation and audio file have been posted. And I'd also like to remind you that this webinar you just heard is really a very timely backdrop and preview for our upcoming forecasting workshop next week, especially in light of FERC Order 841 on electric storage participation in regional markets. You touched on that a little bit today. And also the recent technical conference on aggregation of DERs, which I think is very much related to what we discussed today. So I strongly encourage your participation if you're at all able to get there. And I want to let you know that we appreciate your engagement. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar on Thursday, July 19th at 2 p.m. That webinar will feature Jim McCauley, a professor at Iowa State, and he'll be speaking on the SEAM study project, which was managed by NREL for DOE, concerning the HVDC grid overlay across the seam of the eastern and western interconnections. I think everyone knows by now that a robust transmission system is a critical ingredient in the integration of large amounts of renewable energy, and there's a great story to be told here, so please join us for that. And I'd also like to mention the jointly sponsored webinar series from NERC, EPRI, the North American Generator Forum, and ESIG on the topic of inverter-based resources, and further information on all the webinars and meetings can be found on our website at www.esig.energy under events and in our newsletters and emails. Ulrich, I want to thank you for this very timely and informative webinar. And thanks again to all of you for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you the next time around, so take care until then.
Okay, thanks a lot for the invitation, and see you next week.
Okay, thank you.